and forth between Dangote Refinery and the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN, has intensified as the union has instructed its members nationwide to withdraw their services following the alleged mass dismissal of over 800 Nigerian workers by Dangote Refinery. In a circular issued after an emergency National Executive Council meeting on Saturday, September 27, 2025, and signed by General Secretary Lumumba Okugbawa, the union accused the refinery of violating Nigeria's labor laws, the Constitution, and the International Labour Organization conventions by dismissing workers for joining the association. Dangote Refinery has insisted that PENGASSAN's recent directive to withdraw services and cut off essential fuel supplies, including but not limited to petrol, diesel, kerosene, cooking gas, and aviation fuel, was reckless, lawless, and dangerous. He said the order is not about protecting Nigerian workers, but it is about a cabal of oligarchs weaponizing our ship against over 230 million Nigerians. Joining us on this show to discuss the rift between Dangote and PENGASSAN is Peter Esele, former president of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC. Good morning, Mr. Esele, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Thank you for having me.
Well, Mr. Esele, you are a veteran of these struggles, but you know the details. But I would like you to remember that between 1993 and 1999, this same PENGASSAN and NUPENG, they tried to give hell to the Abuja government. I think it was Abuja at that time. And that led to a lot of disruption. And now it is a private sector investor, namely Alhaji Aliko Dangote and his Dangote Refinery, the same PENGASSAN and NUPENG asking for check-off dues, are the ones also creating problems and threatening to cause problems for us, the ordinary people of Nigeria. Isn't that economic sabotage? What do you think the issue is? Some people have said this will discourage investors from investing in this economy. Why will a group of unionists sabotage the country while pursuing their legitimate rights to organize?
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you, Ayo, and also thank you, Rufai. I heard Ayo came to the rescue of the union by saying the union should not be demonized when I heard prior to me coming on. But one thing is clear, disagreements like this are not something that is unexpected. You know, one thing is the union wants to unionize. I am privileged as a former president of PENGASSAN and TUC, and also have access to the three parties involved. I have spoken to NUPENG, I have spoken to PENGASSAN, and I also spoke to the Dangote Industries. And at the end of the day, I also end up speaking to Dangote himself in all of this. But one thing is very clear. Dangote has a right to set up its refinery, and Dangote's refinery must also be allowed to function. Dangote Refinery is a pride to this country, and I also saw Dangote Refinery as a big balm for our energy security. Be that as it may, you also need workers to run those refineries. So the relationship between the trade unions and the Dangote Refinery is a symbiotic one based on mutual interest and mutual benefit. So where are the areas of disagreement here? The areas of disagreement is that PENGASSAN is one of the very few unions. You don't go to PENGASSAN and say, I want to be a member. No, you apply to be a member of PENGASSAN, you signed, and the letters are sent to PENGASSAN. So when PENGASSAN received that, PENGASSAN will now write a letter to the management informing the management that Ruben, Rufai, Ayo, or XYZ are now members of PENGASSAN. So what you had was that these 800 workers were now people who had already enlisted to be members of PENGASSAN. Then Dangote went ahead and carried out this reorganization. Coincidentally, these 800 people were involved in this reorganization. So that now made PENGASSAN to say, no, this is more like victimization and intimidation and not wanting us to unionize your workers. So that is where the rift is. As per the issue of shutting down the country or wanting the ordinary man to suffer. I don't think PENGASSAN will go that route immediately. The first stage of, there are various steps towards a strike action. Now the National Executive Council have met. Am I expecting them to close the valve today? No, I don't think they will do that today. First thing is you close the offices and then you create room for conversation. PENGASSAN is very responsible, so I can confidently predict what the President of the National Executive Council will be, how they will handle all of this. They've given room for conversation. I'm happy that the coordinating minister for finance is on it. And it's also very disappointing that the Ministry of Labour really don't have a teeth to bite. So most times meetings are held in Ministry of Labour and you find out that nothing is done. So what you have is that PENGASSAN to have lost faith in that aspect. So it's my expectation that the DSS and hopefully the Ministry of Finance can find a conflict resolution mechanism around all of this to bring peace.
All right, thank you. Would that conflict resolution mechanism, would it involve perhaps asking the unions to pursue legal routes to solving their issue with Dangote Refinery? Because they have a basis from Section 40 of the Constitution as opposed to shutting down the economy. And that's why they've been, their action has been described as criminal, because it is, it is affecting or attacking a critical national asset, and like you mentioned, energy security.
Yes, one thing is very clear. As a worker, I have a right to withdraw my service. So what the union is doing is that they are notifying the country that we have a right to withdraw our service. Therefore, we are withdrawing our service. So if they say they are withdrawing their service, so what we need to do is, what do we do to ensure that whatever is going to snowball into making us lose or threaten national security, then we now need to do something about it. I don't think PENGASSAN really want to cripple Dangote. I heard before coming on, I listened to Rufai, I listened to Dr. Abati, and I listened to yourself. And Dr. Abati went as far as saying that even the president should also be arrested. We are in a democracy, for God's sake. There may be a disagreement. But I will tell you, PENGASSAN is not closing the valve immediately. PENGASSAN wants a conversation. I spoke to PENGASSAN yesterday. I spoke to officials of PENGASSAN yesterday. They want to do everything to support their refineries. What they are simply after is that if these guys have intimidated interest to be part of us and they've lost their job, what that means is that the president of PENGASSAN and PENGASSAN itself will also lose face. So if I say I'm going to be part of you and I lose my job, so why do I need to belong to you in future?
Okay.
Does Dangote have the right to hire and fire? He has the right to hire, but he does not have the absolute power to fire. It has to be transparent.
Okay. Mr. Seller, you are my very dear brother. And I used to tell you this many times, and I'll say it on the air, that people like you, if it was possible, that you should be president of PUC or PENGASSAN for a longer time. Despite the fact how long you were, because after the lives of people like you left there, there's no real rigor and intellectual rigor and depth in our unionism. We have these conversations. But I put it to you with empirical facts that your people at PENGASSAN didn't tell you the complete truth. Let me read a circular sent out by some of the power companies, an internal message that I stumbled on. Received notification from gas supplier to shut down our thermal plants. Directive from PENGASSAN. This was yesterday. NGIC has specifically requested GEMCOs to do so. They are ramping up shutdown. Receive NGIC's ATM. ELPS already shut. Only gas left is in the line packed. No incoming since morning. That's national sabotage. The PENGASSAN you are defending did so. Empirical fact yesterday. And that's why Dr. Abati was correct. I saying in a national sabotage like this, people like this should be called in for police questioning because you had a dispute. So they might not tell you the truth, but they made the orders yesterday. Empirical facts. What's your response to this, my brother?
Now, in the union, we always have this saying, I would want to believe that our rules of engagement will be followed. We have a code within which I think the president will also follow. And so far, I think he's doing that, but I'm going to give the National Secretariat of PENGASSAN the benefit of a doubt. Just like I've also given the Dangote Industries benefit of a doubt. And even in the course of the various challenges between NUPENG and the Dangote Industries, I also had to have a conversation with the NUPENG president and also have a conversation with the chairman of Dangote. And at the end of the day, is that people should be able to meet at the table and have a conversation. And there must be a dialogue. Would there be disagreement? There will be disagreement. And let me also be very clear. It's very difficult. Most management don't want union. And I also let them know that the union also need to find out why would management not want the union to come in place. The psychology of an average Nigerian worker. As a worker, I didn't join an American company that has a union, but I was also instrumental to having the union in place. What happened is that when you have workers writing letter to a union that they want to belong to, you wonder that something is wrong in that management, either in terms of their welfare. If the welfare is okay, they will not. For me, my case in joining PENGASSAN was because a management staff in my company was fired. And when the management staff in my company was fired, and it was paid only 2 months, for after more than 6 years of work, salary was fantastic, other welfare was good. And we also decided that no, this could be us tomorrow. And that was how we wrote letter to PENGASSAN, and we want to be a member. And I know the hell that some of us then went through before PENGASSAN was allowed. So the first thing is, the Dangote industry, I also know their fears. Their worries here is that, oh, we want to deal with the union. It's possible. I have $20 billion loan that I have taken. I have a company that I have to build. I have creditors that I need to pay for. So if unions comes and they start talking about strike or shutting down plants, and I ask some of them, how many oil wells in the last 20 years have PENGASSAN shut? No. PENGASSAN can threaten that we are going to shut the oil wells. Why PENGASSAN is doing that is, please, let's talk. So if we are going to look at, you just told me about empirical evidence, and I'm going to tell you now, how many wells since 1999 has PENGASSAN shut? I've been involved in several strikes. No matter how bloody that strike is, the national interest, we always consider that national interest. And I also believe these guys will consider those national interests. But please, we should also be able to synthesize information coming from both sides and know what is in between.
My dear brother, I give you facts.
Yes.
From the power plants. They ordered it shut down. I gave you alerts from the power plant. This was not Dangote. This was not PENGASSAN. I'm saying for those that were in the center of it. They received from NGIC since 8 years. ELPS was already shut. Only gas left in its line packed. No incoming since morning. So terminal was cut. Production supply was cut. To jeopardize all of us because of a squabble you had with Dangote?
Mr. Sele.
No, that was not good enough by PENGASSAN. And I'm giving you facts, empirical.
Mr. Sele, I don't envy you. You know, you are trying to play a balancing game. You don't want to offend your friend, Aliko Dangote. At the same time, you don't want to be seen to be attacking, your constituency. So you are trying to balance things. But I'll make it easier for you. The coordinating minister of the economy has called a meeting today. Now, that meeting is to prevent the shutdown of the Nigerian economy that PENGASSAN is working upon. What will you advise as the way forward? Because before now it was NUPENG. They held 3 meetings. Nothing came out of it. Everybody was involved, Ministry of Labor, DSS, and all of that. Now, what will you advise so that we'll get better results from this meeting that the coordinating minister of the economy has called today to defend the national interest?
Now, the first thing I would advise is, first, that's what they're doing now. Having this meeting, that's number 1. Number 2 is for PENGASSAN to be allowed to unionize workers in Dangote. Then number 3, Dangote's fears also need to be allayed. Because Dangote's fears is just that, oh, it can be held to ransom tomorrow, first by NUPENG and then second by PENGASSAN. I also allayed their fear is that, hey, I don't think PENGASSAN can condescend to that level of wanting to blackmail or to shut down the refineries. So these are the 3 steps that I think that should be taken. And then at the end of the day, I told you I work for a company. The companies were afraid of strikes and what have you. But we sat down and drew up a plan, a template for conflict resolution. The conflict resolution is that before you go on strike, Dangote and PENGASSAN can agree that we must have a 21-day notice within the Dangote industries so that they are able to have that conversation, hash it out. I don't want to see that refinery crumbled. No, I want that plant to be there because that refinery is a blessing to this country and it's something we should all be proud of. And so for me, those are the steps that I think should be taken. And then if they take those steps, I think PENGASSAN, there will be a win, there will be a mutually beneficial end to the problem.
And that's what we want to see, a mutually benefiting and beneficial end to the problem, especially one that benefits the Nigerian people. But I want you to, just very quickly, I don't know if you would want to do it, but an overview of unions today. Earlier I talked about perhaps the unions not doing the strength of our unions today and a lack of trust as a result of allegations of corruption and the unions benefiting just a few people, as opposed to the days whereby, the unions would come out strongly, workers would come out. Now with the call for a strike, for instance, NLC, it's taken with a pinch of salt because the outcome of it isn't usually what would benefit the workers. Look at the minimum wage, for instance, and some of the, agreements made with the NLC during the last election, during the last strike action. Not a lot has come out of it. Some of the terms have not been met and they've just kept quiet. What do you think we need to do to strengthen our unions today so that they can be taken more seriously?
I think what the union has to do is to deepen its capacity. By saying capacity is to know that you can't operate. There is what I call cycle. There are changes there is what they call the short-term change, which is 3 years. Then there's the medium-term change, which is about 6 years. And then there's the long-term change, which is about 9 to 12 years. So what I also expect the union to do is that they need to be following those changes. You can't operate the same way you operated 15, 20 years ago. Those days you are talking about now of the union being very strong. Don't forget that we don't have plurality of media like we have now. You didn't have Arise, you didn't have all of these media stations. So people have diverse opinion, diverse views. So what you need to do is to engage the people at various fora. That's one. Then the second aspect is that you need to use the media. Now, this is what is happening now. I've had PENGASSAN president. In times past, you have the PENGASSAN president, you have the general secretary. But I'll tell you now, this morning alone, you've had 3 past presidents featuring in different media this morning alone. So you take advantage of it, let people know the reason why you are doing what you are doing. And then thirdly, also make sure you elect the right people. So the challenges that Nigeria is also facing is also the challenges that the unions are facing. The union leaders are not from Mars, they are Nigerians. So the unions also need to look at the fact that who are we electing as president? Who are we electing as industrial relations officer? These are key areas for the unions. And then aspect training. I am very, very lucky and privileged. People say, I heard what Rufai is saying, but of course I went through a lot of training. The union, from Cambridge to Oxford to Walton, business school where I think Kemi Adesho and I took the same course, and they were asking, what are you doing here? I said, I just want to know the secret of business. So it's also easier for me to think from the business angle, and that's what PENGASSAN does. The rule in PENGASSAN is that the company must survive for the union to survive. And the union has to survive so that personnel can also be more productive for the company. So it's symbiotic and it has to be mutually beneficial.